One. Hey, good morning. God bless you all. This is Eric. You may call me whatever you like. I've been called worse. I would be willing to bet. How you doing? Yeah, this is going to be an interesting little short broadcast. The idea is there are things that they're not telling you about evolution. What are they? Well, number one has been disproven. Number two, there's no time for evolution. Um, I'm going to put all this in a very short little nutshell thing. There is a very well known professor. I say professor, I should say scientist. His name is Venter. And he is like the world's foremost geneticist. He's done amazing things that no other geneticist in this world has ever done, like designing a DNA strand and creating it on his computer, actually creating a DNA strand on his computer, then taking the DNA out of an E. coli bacteria cell and putting his uh, DNA, man made DNA, back into that E. coli bacteria cell. Let it go, spun her up, and man, she began replicating again. Yeah, I know. You don't need to tell me I'm calling a single cell organism a she, like a boat or anything else. But I guess I'm strange that way. But don't let that detract from the point. What is the point? Craig Venter, the world's foremost authority when it comes to DNA, world's foremost geneticist, that actually created a DNA strand and replaced the DNA strand of an E. coli bacteria cell. He was the first man to ever do that. He came out and he states, as a geneticist, as the world's foremost geneticist, he states that the tree of life of common descent is not true. It doesn't exist. It's imagination. He says DNA proves this. Now, this is the most respected man in his field. And when he said this in a little get together with Richard Dawkins and several other scientists that are probably all atheists, there was nothing that they could say against him. Nothing. So not only is there no tree of life of common descent, he said it doesn't exist. It's an imagination, an imaginary thing. Without the tree of life of common descent, we do not have evolution as it's taught. Because the tree of life of common descent takes us back to what they call the Luca, Luca. What is the Luca? Well, that's basically the last common ancestor of all life, whether it's plant, animals, bacteria, it doesn't matter. There's what they call the last common ancestor. That's a Luca. And that leads us clear up the tree of life of common descent to where we are today. They depend on that. And he says it doesn't exist. Craig Venter, actual scientist. Mary Schweitzer is another scientist that found soft tissue in dinosaur bone. And not just one dinosaur, but two. And then several other scientists have found many more. And Mary says they've been finding this since the mid-60s and never told us about it. And then she said they've been finding them for nearly 100 years. Well, guess what? When she found the soft dinosaur tissue, nobody believed her. Everybody said it's impossible. She said it was impossible. All the scientists that she told and put her papers before said that this was impossible. But guess what? She earned her PhD by proving that she was right. It wasn't impossible. She was telling the truth. She tested test after test after test after test, as did other repeatable, testable things. And every single time it turned out to be, yes, the truth. This is soft biological tissue, actual blood cells, blood veins, proteins, biological proteins. Now, she tried to see how long she could extend the life of these things because everybody said these things can't last 1,000,000 years, and they were telling the truth. They can't last 1,000,000 years. And she tried to run tests to prove that they could possibly last that long, 65 or 80 million years old. But they didn't reach the desired result. The best they were able to do was increase the tissue stability by 200-fold, not 200-fold, just 200-fold. Now, when you're trying to take a protein with a 117-year half-life, after 10 half-lives, it should be spent. It should be shot. There should be no more in it. But guess what? There still is soft tissue, collagen, blood veins, blood cells, and it shouldn't be there. The collagen shouldn't be there after just 1,100 years, 1,170 years. But let's take her proposed 200-fold increase, and we can see over here that it is a 200-fold increase. This is her paper right here. Pardon me, I'm not even screen sharing, am I? Let me get this on screen share. So what are we going to look at? We're looking at this right here. You'll see that this is a paper written by Mary Schweitzer and a few others. A role of iron and oxygen chemistry in preserving soft tissues, cells, and molecules from deep time. And the abstract goes on to admit that these Mesozoic fossil bones keep containing soft tissues that is not explained by the current chemical degradation models. Now look at this. She tries to extend the life of these proteins. She does this using the blood from an ostrich. She's able to increase the tissue stability by 200-fold from 3 days to almost 2 years, roughly 2 years, from 3 days to 2 years. Now, that sounds pretty good, but people don't do the math, and that's their problem, because it's not good. You're going to need a whole lot more than a 200-fold increase if you're going to go back to 80 million years. If you take collagen, the half-life of collagen, the collagen that you find in cartilage is the longest one that I know of, the longest half-life for collagen that I know of, and it's 117 years. So if you take the longest half-life for collagen that I know of, 117 years, you give it the 10 lifetimes, the 10 half-lives that should make sure that there's nothing left in it. Isn't that simple? No collagen left at all, and that's simple. It doesn't work out. You still only got you've got 1,070 years is the longest this should have been able to last. 117 times 10 half-lives 1,170 years. Now, if you multiply that by the 200-fold increase that Mary found here, you still have an outsized age. The most these bones could possibly be is less than 250,000 years old. Not even 1/2 of 1 million years old. Not even 25% of a million. The oldest these bones can be, according to these tests, are 234,000 years. How do I get that? Well, what's 200 times 1,170? 1,170 is the actual amount of time there should be nothing left. And the 200-fold brings it up to approximately 234,000 years as an outside possibility of its longest stage, its oldest stage. So, scientifically speaking, evolution becomes impossible then. If these bones are at the most 234,000 years old, then how did Archaeopteryx go from a theropod dinosaur to an Archaeopteryx? How did he develop into like the first bird in less than 250,000 years? It was going to take millions of years for him to turn into a bird or to evolve into a bird from the theropod dinosaur. Millions and millions. He can't do it in 234,000 years old. They say we descended from a common ancestor with the monkey, us and the chimp. You cannot pick a common ancestor and then 234,000 years later have a human evolved in one split and a chimp evolved in the other split. That, again, was supposed to take millions and millions of years. It can't possibly take 234,000 years. That's why they're not doing the math and publicizing this. They don't want you to know this, so they can keep up their bull. And that's exactly what this is. Now I want to show you something else. Yeah. Carbon-14 dated dinosaur bones are less than 40,000 years old. You see, one of the things that resulted from this, when they found this soft tissue and they realized that it can't even be 1 million years old, these things can't be even 250,000 years old. Well, some people finally got the thought, well, they say we can't carbon-14 these. We can't test them for carbon-14 because they're too old. But now we're seeing they're young. So maybe we can pick up some carbon-14 in this, even though it's supposed to be no C14 at all if it's over 50,000 years old, or roughly, say up to 57,000 years old. There shouldn't be any at all. But that's not what they found. What happened was, when they did find this soft tissue in all of these various dinosaur bones, and it was proving that they couldn't even be 1 million years old, they said, well, let's take a bunch of these samples and we will take them up there to all these labs and drop them off and not tell them anything and just see what they say. Let's see if there's any carbon-14 and how old they claim these bones are. So they did just that. They took scores of samples from various dinosaur bones that from various nations and dinosaur digs and museums around the country, around the world. They took samples and they sent them to several different testing facilities and had them all, scores and scores of them, tested for C14, and absolutely every single one of them came back young. Look at this. 32,000 years old. 25,000 years old. 29,000 years old, give or take 90 years. 31,000 years old, give or take 230 years. 36,000 years old, give or take 500. Well, that's when all of these are coming back from. You can see there's all various uh, dinosaur bones, the various labs they were sent to, and the various ages that came back for each one, and the date that all of this was done. And you'll see that most of these were done after Mary Schweitzer ran her tests. That happened, I believe, in 2005. And we see that nearly all of these were tested after that date. And all of them came back young. Now, the interesting thing about this, the group of scientists that did all of this, they were amazed. The people that they had impressed a lot of people. They wrote a paper on this, published the paper, and then they were going to present this, the whole presentation, at a, it was a scientific meeting. And there were a lot of people there that were very important people. And this was going to blow the lid off of everything. But guess what they did? They wouldn't let these people produce their paper and give their information in this meeting. They wouldn't allow it. They came through and they began just annihilating the paper verbally without testing anything at all. They just asserted that every single one of these tests were contaminated. Every single one. And yet they're telling us that the C14 tests are the most reliable tests out there, out of all the radiometric tests out there. So if the C14 tests are supposed to be the most reliable, and yet they're saying that every single one of these were corrupted, contaminated, without even testing them themselves to make sure that was the case, how are we supposed to trust their deep time, where you have to assume that a rock is over 10 million years old before you even test it with the uranium lead techniques? But you have to assume it's over 600,000 years old if you're going to use potassium iodine. So you have to automatically bias your test with all of these other things, and yet they're rejecting the test that proves these bones are young. And we don't just have one line of science here coming against this and proving the current paradigm incorrect. This is three very different lines of science. You have Craig Venter saying that DNA proves there is no tree of life of common descent. You have Mary's work proving that these bones cannot even be even 250,000 years old. They're younger than that. And then you have all of these C14 tests that are proving that all of these bones are from the youngest one that I saw out of all of these, and there's several papers on this, but the youngest one was 9,000 years old. The oldest one was nearly 50,000 years old. So you have all of these various sciences that have just destroyed the evolutionist paradigm. And yet, the truth is buried to preserve the paradigm, to preserve the lie. My. So God bless you guys. I just thought I'd throw this out here today for a couple of friends that had mentioned something about it. So God bless you all. I hope this helps. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the comments. We'll do our best. Love you very much. God bless you all. This is Eric. Call me anything you like. Bye-bye.